In recent years, the Chinese government has been pushing to develop and commercialize unmanned driving technology. In a country where unemployment is a major issue, such efforts have only made many people despair. Here is an unmanned courier truck. If it encounters the traffic light, it will automatically recognize it, stop at the red light, and pass at a green one. If there are pedestrians on the zebra crossing, it will also stop to avoid them in time. Such intellectualization relies on our map collection and data conversion. China began developing commercial unmanned driving technology in 2013. It was 5 years behind the US. However, according to consulting firm Bain & Company, by September 2023, China's cumulative mileage of self-driving vehicles had reached 70 million kilometers, the same as the US. The navigation maps we usually use for driving are accurate to the lane level or the meter level and can meet the driver's needs. But our high-precision maps needs to be accurate to the centimeter level, containing rich elements such as flower beds on the road, lane markings, railings, and signs. All these will be scanned and shown on the high-precision map. Our deviation must be within 5 centimeters. In China, the testing and application of autonomous driving technology is blooming. Beijing, Shanghai, Wuhan, Hangzhou, Shenzhen, and many other cities have issued unmanned vehicle licenses to a number of companies, and 51 cities have launched pilot policies for autonomous driving. The unmanned vehicles are now aiming at the market not only for express delivery, but also for rental cars.
武汉的无人驾驶汽车现在目前开始普及了，我现在已经叫了一个无人驾驶啊，这家伙这没司机他就是看不到人的呀，他没有车牌号码。 149是这个，他所以上临牌是怕违规，违规了不知道谁来扣分。然后这个地方先验证一下身份，手机后4位。
Yes, Apollo from Baidu, the Chinese equivalent of Google, has completely discarded human drivers, adopted the technology of autonomous driving, and introduced it into the ranks of the online taxi and rideshare market. More and more cities are launching commercial pilot programs for unmanned vehicles. Once they are popularized, the first to bear the impact will be the online taxi and rideshare services, just like the old days when cabs replaced man-powered three-wheelers. This has caused a great deal of panic amongst the drivers. Wuhan's unmanned taxis are on the road and have been the subject of heated online discussion in recent days. It's said that Wuhan has invested in 3,000 unmanned taxis, and the project name is Apollo. You can see that all the major electric car manufacturers are having fierce heated price wars, but no one notices that Baidu has done such a big thing quietly. Unmanned taxi cut prices in half. How can we make a living? This is a serious problem, and if it continues, it will lead to a slew of problems. It's not just for taxi drivers, but online rideshare drivers. What's more, it'll only make the market competition more intense. In fact, even without unmanned taxis, taxi drivers are already having a tough time. China's economy has deteriorated and various industries have fallen into depression, resulting in a large unemployment. Takeout, express delivery, and online rideshare service are industries with little barriers. They have become top choices for transit jobs, a popular way of making a living for middle-aged unemployed workers. In fact, the 3 jobs are known in China as the 3 treasures of the unemployed in middle age. However, as more people enter those jobs, coupled with the downgrading of consumer spending, and that people would rather take a few extra steps to catch a bus or subway than take a ride, there is an oversupply in the rideshare industry. The current state of the online rideshare industry is crappy, and simply can't get any crappier. I've been driving for 8 years. With years of experience, I can't stand to see the current market both in terms of orders and prices. Things like inner city, carpooling, special offers, and flat prices. The market is no longer what it used to be. Back then, there was still a normal price for rideshares. The daily income and expenses can still be reasonable. As long as your service is not too bad and you work hard, you can't get rich, but it's no problem to support a family. But look at it now. The online rideshare market has been completely corroded by capital and is in a state of ruin. This is Zhengzhou, the capital city of Henan province. The front of a train station is full of rideshare vehicles.
我让你看看我们郑州网约车的现状。哎，这是东站，东站停了多少车？这是一部分，看到没有？
即将向右前方行驶。
前边全部都是，没有单子，拿不到钱。
进入东三环辅路。
看看。
前方红绿灯直行，所有车道均可通行。
这全部都是网约车。
300米右转。
看看。
A Zhengzhou blogger in the loan business describes his experience. Do you know how many people are unemployed in Zhengzhou this year? Where have all the unemployed people gone? Have you ever noticed that nowadays the market for online rideshares is oversaturated with drivers? An average driver doesn't get a few orders a day. This is because there are too many of them. The competition is fierce. I'm in the loan business in Zhengzhou. I found that the employment environment here is terrible. The office next to my company has been replaced several times. Without exception, it's all because of the bad market. With no sales, they have no choice but to close down. Many of the bosses have become drivers themselves, and many of our friends who don't have a job are planning to become a delivery rider. But after all these years of higher education, do you think you'd be willing to work as a delivery driver after graduating from college? Online rideshare drivers in other cities are worried as well. Here is a street interview in Shenzhen. Do you think the future outlook for the online rideshare industry is optimistic? It will only get worse. The main factor is that the general environment is bad, and then there are too many drivers. A cake used to be eaten by 100 people, but now there are 1,000 people for it. So the overall environment isn't so good right now. Prices have come down again and again. It has been lowered 4 or 5 times since last year. Previously, it was 3 and 5 yuan per kilometer, but now it's like 1 yuan per kilometer during both peak and regular hours. During peak hours, it's sometimes less than 2 yuan per kilometer. Don't you think that these platforms are acting foolishly? It's a vicious competition and price war as different platforms are competing for customers. This price war has us affected now. The Chinese media reported that the number of daily orders for each driver of an online rideshare is getting smaller. Some platforms have less than 1,000 orders per day, and drivers in many places run less than 20 orders per day, with a passenger unit price of only a dozen yuan, and an average daily income of only US $28 per vehicle. It's simply not enough to break even. Since 2024, many places in China have issued risk warnings for the online rideshare industry, reminding drivers to be cautious as the platforms have been completely saturated with drivers. Local governments in Jiangsu, Jiangxi, Fujian, and Chongqing have recently issued industry risk warnings for online ride-sharing services. For example, in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province, a risk notice was issued on April 12th, stating that the city has 71,944 licensed rideshare drivers, with an average 15 orders per day in the first quarter and an average daily income of 350 yuan, or less than $50 per day for a single vehicle. For urban areas, the average daily income is only 335 yuan, or $46 per day. The other two treasures of the middle-aged unemployed are takeout delivery and express delivery. They face the same problem as the rideshare business, that is, oversupply and insufficient orders. Nowadays, young people don't work hard for delivery, but older people work harder. It's ridiculous that a PhD student is working as a delivery boy. Look at this row of riders. They are delivery riders from takeout platforms Ele.me and Meituan. This is a very famous street in Shanghai. The rider industry is really saturated. It's full, it's full. You see, they're all sitting there playing with their cell phones. I'd say there's probably over 400 riders sitting there. What's also striking about China's unemployment is the unemployment of college graduates. The number of college graduates will reach a record 11.79 million in 2024, an increase of 210,000 from 2023 and 1.03 million from 2022. No one knows how to solve this problem. Beijing now has an employment ratio of 1 to 100,000. It refers to the kind of office job where you can sit comfortably in the office and apply your lipstick. There are 100,000 people competing for one position. More than 10 million college graduates from 2023 have yet to find jobs. This year, 10 million more college graduates are here. Plus, another 20 million unemployed people will continue to compete with you. That's 40 million people competing for jobs in the same year. I am being conservative here.
It's not that you think it's hard to find a job this year. It's really hard. Ironically and realistically, a man's last option is to work as a security guard, and a woman's last option is to work as a janitor. Nowadays, it's definitely not your fault that you can't find a job. Which company doesn't want to use as little money as possible to hire a highly qualified person? Nowadays, 3,000 yuan or $500 won't get you a waitress, but it will get you a whole bunch of fresh college graduates. That's right, a whole bunch of them. Many companies are not hiring, and those that are making money are laying off workers.
It's been almost a year since this graduate student with a master's degree from overseas returned to China to look for a job. She's slowly starting to lose her mind.
None of you know what I went through. As a student who returned to China after finishing school overseas, I have got 0 offers so far. Since last July and August, I began to prepare a variety of resumes. I sent them out to more than 50 medium-sized large companies. The result was that only one large technology company interviewed me. The interview went from August to December with 6 rounds. In the end, I wasn't hired. I have a Western degree, and not many of my classmates returned to China. I thought there would be a market for talents like me. There was a tech company that I really liked. I thought I was going to be hired, but it closed down completely. I became self-doubting and had a breakdown. You know, with a bachelor's degree from an elite university and a master's degree from overseas, I have never doubted my ability. I've always thought, oh my goodness, if a talented person like me can find a job, China's talent market is really screwed. The job market is really hard now. And you know what? As a person with a master's degree, I may have higher requirements for myself and then higher requirements for jobs. The big companies I want to work for don't want to hire me. And I don't want to work for small companies. So it's an awkward situation right now. The job market in China is really difficult. The last 2 years have been really difficult. It's really hard for young people. Nobody understands.
The young people who can't find a job begin to doubt whether the books they've read and the road they've traveled are worth it, especially those who have studied in prestigious universities. For example, this 211 undergraduate college student, a graduate of one of China's top 30 universities.
2 years ago, I was a 211 undergraduate, and now I am unemployed. I am even starting to regret why I went to class during my college years. Some of the other students skipped classes and went out for internships. I did my homework, but is it useful to write about that on your resume? No.
The most heartbreaking thing you see is that parents work hard for maybe 2,000 yuan or about $280 a month. They have hollowed out the family savings to send a child to university in the hope that a college graduate can help change the fate of the family. But then the college student graduate makes either over $400 a month or becomes unemployed. What do they do when they can't find a job? Drive a taxi or delivery takeout, etc. There are stunning statistics in Meituan. 130,000 riders are undergraduates and 60,000 riders are graduate students. We used to think that going to college would change your life, especially in the rural areas. But the truth is, that logic doesn't hold up today. The Chinese official media and various experts are trying to convince the public that the reason why college graduates can't find a job is their own fault. In other words, it's the young people's inability to endure hardship and their inability to put themselves on the line that makes it difficult to get jobs.
When choosing jobs, young people must give up the idea of expecting high wages and benefits.
Perhaps, based on this idea, in some large-scale job fairs prepared for college students, various hotels and restaurants have entered the scene, recruiting front desk workers, waiters, and dishwash workers, etc., with a monthly salary of less than $300. Chinese netizens commented that the job fairs are humiliating.
I wish I hadn't gone to the university. I'm a fresh college graduate, majoring in Chinese language and literature. I haven't been able to find a job. I don't know what to do, as my rent is about due. After so many years of study and getting into a relatively good school as well, I was expecting to make about $1,500 a month, but now I can only expect to work for something like from $500 to $600 a month. It's psychologically humiliating. If I hadn't gone to college, I would have been able to work as a waitress or customer service person with peace of mind, and I wouldn't have been in such a dilemma.
Of course, there are college graduates who have had to accept such jobs. This girl describes how today she served 158 dishes and wiped the table 56 times. She ran up and down the stairs 78 times and stood for 9 hours and 20 minutes. Some people say that it's a waste of education if a college student graduates and becomes a waitress. With China's economic situation deteriorating, first-tier cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou are in decline. Foreign companies are pulling out. All industries are declining gradually. The local unemployment rate has increased greatly, and there is less room for career development. So some college graduates have to return to their hometowns for jobs. I graduated from Peking University with $140 in savings.
I have a master's degree from Peking University, and my last job was building houses in a village.
I also made $140 from delivering food. Figures released by China's National Bureau of Statistics show that private enterprises are more capable of absorbing employment than state-owned enterprises. From 2004 to 2022, the share of state-owned units in total urban employment fell from 25% to 12%. The share of private enterprises and sole proprietors in absorbing employment rises from 20% to 60%. However, the Chinese government has been suppressing private businesses for many years, squeezing their survival room, engaging in public-private partnerships, confiscating private property, and cracking down on private entrepreneurs, with hundreds of millions of dollars of private owners' property being wiped out overnight. 3 years after the epidemic, the economy is in a downward spiral, and private enterprises are now closing down in droves. In 2022, 460,000 enterprises nationwide closed down. 3.1 million companies were deregistered or suspended. In the first quarter of 2024, 459,000 food and beverage businesses were deregistered or suspended in China. The sluggish demand for labor from SMEs will naturally lead to a significant employment pressure on college graduates. A computer graduate said that after submitting 200 resumes, she was offered 2 interviews. But the interviewer's questions left her confused, not knowing why they asked those strange questions. Maybe they just didn't want to hire her.
Then in the second interview, the interviewer gave me a question. He said there was a widow, a rich man, a child, and a pregnant woman on a boat, and he asked you to choose one of them to throw off the boat. The moment I got this question, I thought, how should I answer this question so that I can demonstrate my knowledge in computer science? I haven't been able to figure it out, so both of these interviews have been quite stressful for me.
China's private enterprises have little confidence in the market. Large enterprises are laying off more workers, and small and micro enterprises have many concerns, all of which aggravate the vicious competition for jobs. According to a survey of 1,410 private companies in China by Beijing-based Dacheng law offices, 49% admitted they have no intention of hiring in the next 2 years. 26% have no plans to expand, and 6% are considering layoffs. At this point, the clever Chinese experts have another trick up their sleeves. What is it?
Some experts have come up with the idea of college graduates paying to work. The so-called pay to work means that enterprises don't have to pay wages to university students. Instead, the students will pay money to enterprises in order to gain work experience and job opportunities. In this way, the enterprises will have cash to tide over the difficult times, and the college graduates will be able to get jobs.
大学生也就能够就业。